This meeting is being recorded.
Alrighty, we are being recording. Okay, so going through the slide deck, State Senator Jabari Brisport. We're talking about mayoral control. First slide, please. So for those who don't know, before the implementation of mayoral control, there were 32 school boards across the city, one for each community school district. And citywide, there was a central board made up of 7 members, one appointed by each of the 5 borough presidents and 2 by the mayor, for a total of 7. Next slide, please. Mayoral control began in 2002 under Mayor Bloomberg and Governor Pataki. It was when the New York State legislature enacted the Education Governance Reform Act, which did a few things. First thing was that it allowed the mayor to appoint the chancellor. Next slide, please. It also removed that 7-person central board and created the Panel for Education Policy, the PEP, or you may have heard it as PEP, which was a 13-member board with 8 appointees by the mayor and 5 appointees, one from each of the borough presidents. Next slide, please. The act also eliminated those 32 school boards and created what we now have, which are the 32 community education councils, the CECs. Each of those had 12 members, 9 of them being public school parents who were elected by the PTA presidents or PTA officers, 2 appointees by the relevant borough president, in our case, Brooklyn, and 1 high school senior appointed by the superintendent. And the high school senior is a non-voting member. Next slide, please. The first act was set to, again, 2002 was set to expire in 2009. In 2009, it actually did expire for a few chaotic weeks before being renewed for 6 more years. There were amendments made during the renewal to give the mayor increased authority and also increase parental voice. Next slide, please. The 6-year extension takes us to 2015, now under Mayor de Blasio, where he was granted 1-year extension, then 1 year again, then 2-year again in 2017. And then during that 2-year, the 2017 extension, there were pro-charter school provisions included where the mayor agreed to increase the number of available charter schools by reissuing withdrawn charters. If you've heard the phrase zombie charters, that's where that came from, that reissuance. Next slide, please. Okay, that extension took us to 2019. In which case there was a 3-year extension granted, again under de Blasio, and then amendments made during the 2019 extension expanded the PEP to 15 members, 1 additional member who was elected by CEC presidents, and then also 1 more member for the mayor's appointees to maintain the mayor's majority control over PEP appointees. There was also a provision added where a 10-day notice needed to be given if the appointing authority wanted to remove any PEP appointee, whether that be the mayor, whether that be the CEC presidents. And also the parameters of the elections of CEC members changed from just the PTA presidents to all the public school parents in the district. Next slide, please. So here we are now at the end of that 3-year extension from 2019. Mayoral control is set to expire this year. And the New York State legislature, for those who don't know, we stopped voting on bills on June 2nd. So the legislative session ends June 2nd. That is about a week and a half from now. And if we do nothing, if we let it completely expire, we immediately revert back to the system pre-2002 with the 32 school boards and all the elections and everything that entails. So not many people are pushing for an immediate end and that revert, but that just so that people know if in the event we do nothing, that is exactly what would happen. Next slide, please. So there are several proposals on the table. I'm just going to go through 2. One is the proposal from Mayor Adams and his administration, which is to flat out extend mayoral control as it is for 4 more years with no changes made to it whatsoever. Next slide, please. Then there is also the union proposal from the UFT, which advocates for changes to the PEP. That first bullet point, you can say that they're advocating that we shift 2 of the mayoral appointments to be appointments by CEC presidents, and that they must be parent members. It also does a stipulation around the terms, saying that members can only serve 1-year fixed terms, but with the option of renewal, because as of now they don't have any sort of limit to their terms, and they're sort of at will. And then last bullet point, the members can only be removed for cause by the Commissioner of Education. And I again think I've been getting emails from many of you for your opinions, your thoughts, and I know some of the CECs has passed resolutions with specific suggestions on where to go. I am not favoring any particular proposals this evening on the call. I'm mostly here to listen, but in the slides, I just wanted to let people be aware of what the Adams administration is pushing and lobbying the state legislature to do, and also what the union is pushing and lobbying the state legislature to do. So that's the end of the slide deck. So we can go ahead and remove that. Thank you so much, Cara. And yeah, this can be a pretty open discussion on people's thoughts on where to move forward. And before we open up to the floor to all, again, I will allow the CEC presidents to share their thoughts. I do see one comment that I want to address in the chat from Tish Doggett. Why are only 2 proposals being considered? Sorry for anything that was not clear in the presentation. Those were just 2 that we put up on the slide deck, one from the mayor, one from the U of T. There have been other proposals on the table as well, and everything is on the table and everything's being considered right now. And sorry, one last thing. I'll let my chief of staff, Cara, just talk through ground rules and community guidelines about how we're going to engage with each other tonight, and then my lovely CEC presidents, I will go to you. So I'll kick it to Cara.
Thank you, Senator. Good evening, everybody. Really looking forward to hearing all of your thoughts, and just want to give some brief guidelines to maximize our conversation. So I will be your moderator, and I will call on people to speak, and how you ask to be called on is by typing the word stack in the chat, which I just did. So if you wish to make a comment, and people are picking up, that's great. Just type stack in the chat and I will call on you. And then also as we go through the conversation, please do not speak over each other or interrupt each other. We hope to hear from everybody, and hopefully people that don't speak that much will speak up, and people that really tend to enthusiastically share will give room for others to speak. And yeah, I think those are the basics, and from there we can begin.
Okay, so I'll probably reiterate this multiple times, but again, this is you're all giving me a gift tonight. As your state senator, a chance to hear from you, my constituents, and let you lead on how best what I should be advocating for as Albany, as the state legislature figures out what we're doing. So of the CEC presidents, and Kwan, I see your hand.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you for doing this. As always, you have been a champion and partner in these type of conversations. I'm going to make mine really short and sweet. I'm sure Camille has a lot to add if I forget anything, but I just want to focus really on just this mayor, because previously, we talked about mayoral control not being about a particular mayor, but because this mayor and this chancellor want to make it about race, let's talk about this mayor and this chancellor at this point. This mayor took office in January. There was no PEP meeting in January. He did not appoint his appointees as of January. February, he appointed his appointees, but announced them the same day as the PEP meeting, and did not even announce all of his appointees. On top of that, if we have seen the behavior of this administration already, from the hiring practices to the way that the chair of the PEP, which is a mayoral appointee, treats the public, it's incredible, disrespectful, and disappointing. And as a Black man, since they want to use Black as a color and they want to use that, we're saying he does not need 4 years. He does not need 2 years. He needs a 1-year extension with a commission. You give him 4 years, he's not accountable to anybody, anything. At the meeting before last, when he proposed or shoved down this G&T down everyone's throat, over 10 CC presidents came to the PEP meeting and talked against it in opposition. And basically, it's recorded him saying CEC presidents or councils do not represent all their constituents. My reply to that was, or to that is, the mayor doesn't represent everybody because everybody didn't vote for him. But at the end of the day, he's the mayor. At the end of the day, we were elected by our constituents. And, this lack of disrespect is unacceptable. And on top of it being unacceptable, you can't one hand say we don't do this, and then on the hand you say, oh, well, we're going to let you all do the superintendents. Like, you can't play both games. And the biggest concern I have is after he gets whatever you all give him, it's going to be everything out. It's going to be nothing we can do with this administration. So I ask that you consider that in the conversations that you're having with your colleagues. He needs a 1-year extension with the commission and changes to the PEP and more authority to CCs. Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Naquan. Oh, go ahead, Cara.
Excuse me, Senator. One moment, just going to the top of our stack. Unless, Senator, you want me to pause?
I do. I just want to make some space for Camille or Cynthia. I didn't see your hand, but if you would like to share, you're open to, but we can go into the stack of everyone else if you would prefer to listen.
Thanks so much. Again, just thank you so much for this opportunity and this space. Naquan pretty much said it all, but I just want to reiterate some of the asks that we've had just in these last 5 months that have gone ignored. The removal of the mask mandate. Many of our communities wanted to maintain masks. Yes, like all of our communities are different, but we know what we need for our communities, and these across the board decisions don't work for everybody. Naquan mentioned the PEP vote that went through when so many parents were advocating against it. There was a year-long process of working on how to make their student funding rates actually fair and help the students that truly are in need get what they need. We've been advocating for police-free schools and full-time social workers and counselors at every school. And we are just, getting flat out no's on these things. In many cases, the G&T mandate has been an insult to districts like mine, where we are trying to create a school-wide enrichment model in every school, giving opportunities to every child, and being told that we are forced to open a G&T classroom, that it's being put into a school that likely will lose their special ed classrooms because of G&T. It's totally unacceptable. And I'll just close it out with the superintendent firing and then saying they can come back, and then the town halls and all the drama and upset that has been created by this. We have just had 2.5 years of instability. And last thing we need right now is to have more chaos. And the mayor and the chancellor have brought exactly that to our district. So we really need more parent voice, more on the ground, local control. I personally am not a big believer in going back to the school board system. I would like to see a hybrid model. So 1-year extension and commission is really the best case scenario in this moment in time. And frankly, I feel like going forward, there should only be a 1-year extension until we really have figured this out. So thank you so much and welcome everybody.
Seems like a wonderful leader.
It's a really nice comment that just broke through the silence. Just making some space for Cynthia before we go into the stack. Okay, Kara, take it away.
All right, thank you, everybody. And please do correct me if I mispronounce any names as I'm going through this stack. First, we're going to hear from Sheena.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Senator Brisport, for holding this amazing event. I see so many of my colleagues and fellow activists in this space. It's actually really, really nice. So I just wanted to say a few things. I have been fighting against mayoral control since 2008, and I was part of the group that actually put out an alternative proposal, which ended up delaying the entire vote, and we were in this limbo. I was on the CEC that summer. We didn't exist for 2 months. But anyway, I have seen the system under 3 different mayors now, and I'm more than ever firmly convinced that this system does not work for our students. A couple of things that I wanted to bring to your attention is oftentimes this discourse focuses only on the composition of the PEP, but that's only a very small part of it. So you can make the composition of the PEP whatever we want it to be. But if you think about all the controversial initiatives that happened in the last 20 years, most of them did not require the vote of the PEP. In the recent past, how we reopened schools in September 2020, that had no community engagement. PEP did not vote on that plan. This newest GNT, whatever he's calling it, that did not require the vote of the PEP. Admissions changes, pandemic grading policies, all those important policies that really affect our students did not go through the PEP vote. So you can make the PEP majority parents elected by parents even. If the chancellor ignores and bypasses the PEP, then we're still going to have all these harmful policies moving forward. So that's one of the reasons why I am pushing for a commission, because clearly we need a new system. But we also, as a system, have to think about which decisions should be made by the local school board and which decisions should involve central. Perhaps curriculum decisions should be made at the central level. I can imagine culturally responsive sustaining education should not be left up to community school boards, because there are some community school boards who are not going to do that. So that's the conversation that I think we need to have as a community, bringing in parents, former parents, advocates, teachers, classroom teachers, administrators, and policymakers and educational researchers. We should all be coming together to really think about what would make sense, who should make what policy and how. So that's what I'm really yearning for. And if anything, for this short-term change that's about to happen, 1-year extension, a commission, and fixed term for PIP members, so that the mayor cannot willy-nilly fire PIP members who vote against his will. Thank you so much again for this opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have Paulette.
Not the president.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm really sorry about the background noise. It's Drag Race City over in Bay Ridge South right now. So I can comfortably say that the majority of the people who are in this wonderful space that you created for us today, Senator Brisport, will be saying the same thing about one-year extension and commission. So I don't want to spend my time talking about that because I'm sure, everyone else will be able to hammer that home. I do want to I want to be specific about our special education community, specifically District 75. Under mayoral control, we've seen segregation of our schools increase 100-fold, from the beginning to what we're seeing now, especially in the area of special education students and our District 75 students. There's maybe 2% of our overall District 75 population that actually do attend a school within their own neighborhood. Everyone else, the 98%, are bussed out. And as we've seen with this pandemic, with transportation issues, whether it's a busing issue, whether it's a MetroCard issue, our children are stranded at home, not being able to access, a free and appropriate education. And that is in place because of mayoral control. And if we want to talk about community integration of our children that are neurodiverse, that have intellectual, challenges and, self-regulation challenges, we can't do it while mayoral control is still in place, because the communities that have high populations of this particular marginalized, disenfranchised population will not have the power to provide these programs within their own districts. It's all up to CEC zoning, and then it's got to go to the PEP, and the PEP has to approve it, and so on and so on and so on. So it's like having all of these roadblocks in our way to prevent any type of integration that we want to do with our children is first and foremost because of mayoral control. So I just wanted to frame that so you understand the impact of what this particular policy change has done. And the second thing that I want to talk about is remote learning, that many, many, many of us on this call advocate very, very, passionately and effectively, to re-implement the remote learning option, especially with this whole talk about coming back into the buildings. And that never happened under de Blasio. And, when we talk to the chancellor about it now, and Mayor Banks, they're like, yes, I will definitely, put into place. It's what he ran on, but he's privatizing it. He's bringing in, charter schools to run the remote academy. And that's not what we were asking for. So again, it's these are the byproducts of having mayoral control in place and not having community, empowerment and authorization. Let's call it what it is. The actual autonomy that the community needs to have in order to service targeted supports to our populations. Every single district has its own DNA. And it can't be a one size fits all approach. We've seen how it's failed, in the past 20 some odd years. So, and I'm so happy to see our PEP members actually on here, because I'm pretty sure when they get to them, they're going to say, yes, we need to get rid of this program too. And I know that means that I will no longer have an appointee position, but that doesn't matter if it's going to be for the best of the entire city.
Thank you.
Next, we have Betty.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to speak. And I don't know if the senator remembers his political family, Ralph Pointer and Betty Davis, a long, long time ago. But I remember Jabari when he was 3. And we were at a birthday party, and Jabari ran up and ate the first piece of the cake with his fingers. So we go back a long, long way. And Jabari, if you do the right thing and support community control of public education, I won't tell about your diapers or anything else. And I won't put any baby pictures online. Having said that, we've already got a format for the human rights model for community education. And one of the things I have to say, although the mayor has claimed he doesn't want to go down the black and white race issue path, is that the majority of Americans who are in the public school system who happen to be European Americans do not have charter schools. And for those of us who believe in freedom and who know our history, we remember that the first Black Congressional Congress, the first laws they passed was to instill and follow up on the public schools that people have been establishing. Colored School number 1 is not far from us on downtown Brooklyn. And you can see the classrooms, you can see who the people were that were teaching in Colored School number 1. So if you take the race out of the issue of why we need community control, then you lose the whole importance of what public education means to democracy. And there is no accident that people are misnaming it and calling it critical race theory. It is not critical race theory. It is the truth of history. I don't even say Black history. I just say teach the truth of history. Put everybody's history there. And Black people will be all over it. I'm not worried. Right from the get-go in the very beginning with whatever country they say, have the original documents about Egypt, etc. So what I'm asking though, is that we not even think of one more year of this, because they have already set their ducks up. They're making the summer school a charter school feeding frenzy. And as someone who has taught for 20 years and was an administrator for 20 years on all administrative levels, schools of the working class poor of any color in New York City have never had equal funding. And so we can't deny that. You can see it. They have also not had equal access to creative staff development. They have not had access to the support that they needed. Someone started off by talking about we need guidance counselors, not more SSAs. And I have met some wonderful school safety officers. I do not challenge them as a union. I do not challenge them as individual workers, but you don't need police, you need healing. The homeless situation in New York City, and I think one of my comrades will be on the call, especially for Brooklyn, is one of the largest, not just in New York State, but for all the other states per 100. And we're talking about families. Without that fact, you can't decide on mayoral control, because the mayor is talking about privatizing nicer housing. It's bad enough now, but can you imagine if the corporations control it? So we don't want schools run by corporations. Corporations started the slave state in America. What do you think the Dutch East India Company was? It was a corporation. So we need to go back and have confidence that we can do this. As a member of the CPE for many, many years, they have done a lot of work and a lot of research. But the number one fact is, if you go for charter schools, you are setting up a vicious class system. If you go for charter schools, you are condemning poor children to ignorance, because the charter schools will not take them. And if they do take them, they will kick them out. How do I know this? As a counselor on the admissions process for the Board of Ed, much of my work came from charter schools expelling our children from the projects, from the working class. And I'm sorry if I'm emotional about that, but I'm working class and I resent it. I may have been a teacher, I may have been an assistant principal, I may have been a principal, but I'm working class and I resent it. So I say we have no choice. We got to fight for community control, because we're fighting for what little democracy we have. Why do you think so many people don't know history, don't understand what they read, and are voting against their own interest and holding politicians accountable? And that's why we have to not say even 1 year, not one more year, especially without an audit. And I don't just want an audit under de Blasio. I want an audit under Bloomberg, who hired one of his Wall Street buddies who got kicked off of Wall Street, responsible for the collapse of Wall Street. Am I the only one who remembers that? The corruption didn't come from the parents in the 32 districts. I think one of my colleagues will tell you, the corruption was from the top. If the fish stinks, it stinks from the head. And the corruption came from the top, the mayor's office and the Central Board of Education. So please consider CPE. Please join us. We have weekly meetings and we need more allies. We can beat this. We can win. People are getting tired of failure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Betty. Before I turn back to the stack, I see Ellen, you have your hand raised. I want to make sure your voice doesn't get lost in this pile of stacks.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I don't know if I know enough about Jabari Brisport to threaten him with infant pictures, but I'm sure that your mother would be proud. My name is Ellen McHugh. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Citywide Council on Special Education. We have, like many other councils, put forward a resolution on mayoral control, including representation for individuals who have disability, the parents of individuals with disabilities. Just as a short piece of history, District 75 CEC did not exist. Under the law, it's not there, under 2590. It was created maybe 10 years ago to satisfy a need when the Senate and Assembly looked at the entire situation of special education representation. The artificial separation of the two units dilutes our power. It dilutes our ability to impact or have an impact on legislation. I would urge you to take a hard look at two pieces of legislation. No, three actually. One piece of legislation is the issue about the move of the impartial hearing office to the city office of administrative trials and hearings. We will be the only school district in the state that requires parents to go to an employee of the district to request an impartial hearing, usually based on a disagreement with the Department of Education about funding and or about services. 85% of the impartial hearings that are requested because the DOE has not changed its reimbursement rate for related service providers in well over 20 years. They are still paying $41 and change an hour for some therapists, where the same therapist in a private situation can make anywhere between $75 to $180 an hour. I'm not saying $180 is fair or preferable, but I am saying that it's important that we pay what is reflective of the regional costs. The other piece of legislation is to allow the citywide councils to vote for the parent member on the PEP. The Department of Education took a very rigid view of the law that was passed about 4 years ago to allow parents to elect parents. The law says presidents of the CEC, so the city took a look at that and said, no, there are 4 citywide councils, they can't vote. That effectively limits the impact of close to 450,000 students, 160,000 students in multilingual learner programs, 250,000 plus in special education programs, another 26,000 students in District 75. And there's an argument about how many students the CCHS represents, because when you get to high school, there are multiple issues. And I forgot the third one. I should have written my notes out a little bit better. Oh, I know what it is. The DOE is right at this point considering the elections for next year for CEC presidents, citywide and local presidents. They are making a recommendation that only the parent of the child who has access to the Nix account will have a full vote. Right now, if there's a 2-parent household, they are suggesting that the parents split their vote 50-50. I find that to be, outside of the fact that I find it to be ridiculous, I also think it's a violation of the Voting Rights Act. The law says parents shall vote for CEC members. It doesn't say the parent who has access to the Nix account will vote. The voting mechanism is what I believe is denying the access for all parents to vote. And there are a number of ways for parents to vote. There is the Nix account, of course. There is a paper vote available at the school if someone should wish to go there. And you can use a QR code to vote, or you can send home a form with a student. The DOE is rejecting the last one, saying that it is not efficient. But at the same time, when they send home the blue card for information, and they consider that the most, well, they don't consider it the most, but they do consider that an appropriate way to reach out to families to get them to register and provide information for the school. That's a long way around of saying those are the three items that I'd really like you to focus on, knowing full well that you are in the Senate, and the person stopping the movement to end the association with the Impartial Hearing Office and the Office of Administrative Trials and Hearings is Assemblyperson Benedetto. He refuses to release it from his Education Committee on the advice of, and I'm going to get in trouble for this, on the advice of the current Commissioner of Education, Betty Rosa. So don't come looking for me if you disagree with me, but please take a hard look at how families, parents of students with special needs, are being subject to discrimination right now, segregation and discrimination under the current structure, which I think people in the current system probably enjoy, because the further you drive wedges between communities, the easier it is to manipulate and manage that community. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Ellen.
Thank you, Ellen. Before I return to the stack, I'm realizing I forgot to mention one thing in the realm of guidelines for our conversation, which is just to ask that people keep in mind that there are many people want to share their knowledge, their critique, their thoughts and feelings with us. So to keep that in mind as you're sharing with the group. And with that, next is Martina.
Hi, thank you so much, Senator Brisport. I am here representing More UFT. It's the Social Justice Caucus of the UFT, of which Senator Brisport was a member before becoming a New York State Senator. So I recognize and honor all of the wonderful wisdom that was shared previously, and empathize and sympathize with sentiments that were already shared. In honor of what Ms. Clark had said, I'll keep it brief. I know there's so many wonderful minds on this call in solidarity here to speak about something so important that impacts 1 million of our students, 1 million children that are relying on these crucial decisions to be made in Albany, a place very far removed from the impact of this decision. I just want to highlight that there's a huge distance mentally and physically from who this will actually impact and where this decision is being made. So thank you so much for bringing ears to the ground. I want to speak about just some of the impacts on the classroom. As a classroom teacher, I teach in District 22 in Brooklyn, and the fair student funding has really been unfair. And this is a direct consequence of, one of the direct consequences of mayoral control, that there's not actually opportunity for debate or dissent or even accountability. At that meeting, at that PET meeting, I was in attendance along with many wonderful activists here, and we just heard youth and parent and teacher and CEC member voices being ignored and then just overruled in a very undemocratic process by somebody who does not have an education degree, does not have a history of education, and does not actually have accountability to the parents, really just only has accountability to the voters of New York City. And I also just want to highlight that the mayor himself has expressed interest in national office in 2024. So I also question the idea of giving somebody 4 years to run a system that they're not even invested in for possibly another 2 years. So I really question why we would give that blank slate. I also want to highlight that Mayoral Control is responsible for the $18 million DESA disaster, which if you're not familiar with, I won't go into, but that money could have been spent on counselors, on social workers, on actual needs. I have students in my class that have suffered directly from, I have students who have lost parents from COVID, and we are still waiting for grief counseling to arrive on a consistent basis for our students. Our rotating cast of chancellors that is completely dependent upon the political sphere is an unacceptable way to do policy, especially in the most racially segregated school system in the country. We have had 2 decades of mayoral control, and what do we have to show for it? We have abysmal progress in reading. We have the continued disparity in access to resources. As a classroom teacher, I can tell you that I still don't really have access to pencils, that things are still locked away. Like, it's still very difficult to get what we need for our actual students, not to mention our students in temporary housing, not to mention our students in foster care, not to mention our students who are not native English speakers. Like, who are we centering in the decisions that we are making, and the communication that's being given? And finally, I just want to highlight that we really cannot have the control of schools be at the mercy of an election cycle. I mean, literally, the election of a mayor is the election of their appointee as chancellor. And so to really fix or address the issues in a system as large as the city of New York and as segregated as the city of New York, we need bold and consistent and powerful and democratically led and democratically commissioned conversations around really difficult questions of education. And those things cannot be politicized, and they can't be made by people whose egos and future political ideals are being governed. We've had 2 mayors who have, visions of higher office, and the students of New York City suffer because of it. Like, we need to stay focused on the ground level and keep our egos in check. That's my piece.
Thank you, Martina.
Next, we have Dr. Salas.
Hi, everybody. Kaliris here. I am the PEP appointee for the Manhattan Borough President. And I just want to co-sign on the things that have been said before. Being on the PEP, I was president of CEC4. And if it weren't for being in the education activism space for 8 years, there's no way I would get the information necessary to make informed decisions while we're voting and while we're engaging in conversations. These things, G&T, fair student funding, they literally put us in a space where it's like, you got this 1-hour briefing. And I'm going to explain it all to you in that 1 hour. During that hour, we have now 9, but during that hour, we have mayoral appointees that have 0 idea of what's happening, like none. And it ends up being a teaching moment for them. We never get to the minutia. We never get to the nuance. We can never address collectively what's happening. So when you're going into that meeting, you have no idea where people stand unless you're engaging in some conversation, because there can't be more than 8 of us in one space, because then we have to open the meeting, and why that would be so difficult, I don't understand. So all of these little details, even as we have this structure, we don't even have the opportunity to have the information in order to make accurate decisions. And so we're at the mercy of the mayor at all times, in addition to at the mercy of our elected officials. And while I have a lot of respect and a lot of love for Mark Levine, there are moments in true honesty where he will push me back and he will be like, no, you can't vote that way because I have to maintain a relationship with the mayor. And so politics are still in place. And independent of the fact that I have all this knowledge and I bring this information to him, and I'm still on the ground, and I'm still bringing in teachers to the conversation, principals to the conversation, freaking drove to Staten Island to be with the consortium, principals, etc. It does not matter, because having all of that information is never allowed to be brought into the space. Hence, we don't have a democratic decision being made towards the direction of our public schools. I will also say that in the last couple of months, even though I'm not 100%, where Banks is, Dan Weisberg and Bloomberg are really the ones calling the shots here. And it's a little scary because it doesn't feel like there is anything but demand, and I put that in quotes, being talked about. They want to sell whatever they think they're hearing, and it has nothing to do with sound pedagogical practices for the diverse children that we have in our school system. With the instruction and the assessment are an afterthought. The services, the needs are an afterthought, and we can handle that later, and we're not addressing it now. And so that is the biggest problem with mayoral control, and I hope it's 1 year. Maybe I could live with 2. But these people don't know what they're doing, and so we really have to make sure that this isn't the only space where we come together, that we continue to work collectively to push this mayor and this chancellor to do right by children.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Next,
Doctor.
Lauren.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Senator, for creating this space and for giving parents on the ground and teachers and elected and appointed parent leaders the space that they have not been given by the chancellor and the mayor to share their hard-earned knowledge. There is a whole lot of brilliance in this room. I don't know how many of these folks you know, Senator Brisport, but these are, this is kind of the best that you could hope for if you want to know what's really happening. So many of these people I've been really lucky to learn from myself. And so I hope you're taking notes. And you know, I agree with every single thing that everyone before me has expressed. As a parent and as someone who's lived in New York City my whole life, just off the top of my head, you know, the things that have gone wrong or that were just terrible under mayoral control since Bloomberg. I mean, class sizes have gone up, segregation has increased, school closures and reorganizations, the proliferation of charters under Bloomberg. I mean, that was a nightmare. Those were nightmare years under Bloomberg. And then with de Blasio, you know, we don't have to reach so far back to take a look at what went on during the pandemic. I mean, he wasn't going to close our schools. He was not going to close our schools when the pandemic hit. Think about what would have happened. He already closed them a week or more too late when he finally decided. And it was a battle. And that is because the way the current system is set up, it allows, you know, authoritarian egomaniacs to do whatever the heck they want with no accountability, none. I can't think of another system that we have, another system of governance that we have that works like that. So, you know, like everyone said, we absolutely can't do 4 more years, 3 more years, 2 more years. I appreciate the argument that we can't just end it right now without something else in place. I think the idea to have a commission is necessary. It just can't, we can't afford, certainly with this mayor, but really it didn't work under any mayor. And I think that's a really important point. This is not about any one individual. It's about a system of governance that just doesn't work, and it doesn't happen almost nowhere else in the country. Is a school system that works in this way with one person in charge with really no accountability. There is the PEP, of course, but you just heard Dr. Kaliris explain how that works in actuality. She is one of the most brilliant advocates that we have in New York City, and she knows what needs to be done, and she's being handcuffed in a way. She should be able to make the decisions that and vote the way that she knows how to vote. But she just explains how and why that's not exactly working, right? So, you know, Yeah, and to Martina's point about all the chaos that's caused when you have school policy that can shift abruptly because of an election, right? That just doesn't work. I mean, all the software and the assessments and the stuff that has to be redone, and I mean, I'm gonna stop there. I could kvetch about this all night, but just thanks to everyone who's on this call, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren.
Next, we have Antonia.
Hi, thank you so much for being with us on your Sunday evening, Senator Brisport, to talk about this important issue. We really appreciate it. I'm Antonia Ferraro. I am Camille's colleague and partner in crime on the CEC 15. I just want to echo my support for a 1-year extension and a commission. I also want to echo the description of chaos that everybody on this call has talked about. Our district doesn't want a new superintendent. Why did we have to go through all of that? Our district has worked hard to reevaluate policy like the G&T program because it is pedagogically inappropriate and leads to negative disparate impacts on students and has numerous OCR complaints. I echo the frustration that these fair student funding weights haven't been changed in decades. But I want to take a different approach to this that I'm thinking. Why does Adams even want mayoral control? I don't really understand it. He should really have to sit for a town hall like all of these superintendent candidates and explain to us why he wants it, because I'm just not getting it. I'm not seeing it. I think that he could actually be a far more successful mayor with a democratic governance system, because I think it would force him to be more collaborative and more popular. It would lead to him actually being more popular with the people if he had to listen to them and implement their wishes. Instead of just staying in the echo chamber. I think that a democratic mechanism would also eliminate a lot of unnecessary conflict, because that's the purpose of a democratic system, to resolve sort of conflict. And I think for Adams, it would eliminate, a steady stream of reliable bad press. He would no longer be the pitcher. The pitcher gets blamed and gets the glory. But let's face it, in the realm of school governance, there's no glory. It's all critical. So I really don't know why he even wants to take the blame for education policy that he doesn't even seem to be interested in enough to sit down and explain to us why he wants the role. So just in sum, it's time. Mayoral control has got to go. It's not proved its worth. And we need a democratic form of school governance. New York City is exceptional, but it's not so exceptional that we can't handle it. I think we could have an exceptionally good form of school governance if we had a commission. So that's all I have to say. Thank you so much. Enjoy your Sunday.
Thank you, Antonia.
Next, we have James. James, if you're talking, you're muted. Going once. Going twice. All right, James, I'll circle back and hopefully we can hear from you. Next is Rosie.
Hello, my name is Rosie. I'm a teacher. I've been teaching in DOE for 15 years. I am also a parent of a kindergartner. and I'm a member of the Movement of Rank and File Educators and the New York Collective of Radical Educators. So let's face it, right? Mayoral control is all about money and control, right? Like Bloomberg and the country privatized education through mayoral control, right? And through charter schools. There's a ton of money to be made in New York City. And if you have complete control over it, you can make it and your friends can make it, right? And community control is all about love, right? We know what we need. We know what our schools need. We know what our community needs. And I think we need to invest in school governance and actually giving educators, like school staff, parents, and students the tools that we need to be able to make decisions collectively and to have those hard conversations, right? Like I'm all about getting police out of schools, but in order to make that happen, we have to have hard conversations in my school community about what it means to be safe. I can't just roll up there and be like, oh, we shouldn't have cops in there. And they're like, oh, wait, hold up. No, people, there's conversations we need to have. And when we don't have school boards, when we don't have community control of schools, we actually don't have a way to have those conversations. And we're stuck relying on things like the school leadership team, which is like underfunded. And it's a great idea on paper, but it needs more resources, right? And the CEP, the Comprehensive Education Plan, is a joke, and it's demoralizing to parents. Like, I teach at a school, I teach at the International High School at Prospect Heights, and my school community speaks several languages, right? So in order to get our parents in there to have a conversation about the CEP, we need translators, which we provide, and we do it, right? But then this convoluted form with like drop-down menus about stuff they don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about what's on the CEP, right? And we finally have a space where we get to like bring parents and students and staff together, and then we're stuck like talking about the CEP. No, like we want to talk about the things that matter, like school uniforms, like the soccer uniforms for the girls' soccer team. Like that was like a big conversation in our school leadership team. So it's really important that I think whatever we're fighting for is at the local level. Like schools are part of the community, right? Like Prospect Heights is a beautiful campus, right? And it should be part of the community, right? Like birthday parties should happen there. There should be block parties with Clara Barton and Prospect Heights and 241. Like we should come together. Like if we're actually ever going to change society, it starts with the schools. This is where the power is at. If we want to talk about race, have those hard conversations. Let's do it in our school. This is where we learn. This is where we connect with one another. This is where we love each other. And we actually all have an investment in making the school a great place. So I'm all about the commission. I'm all about ending mayoral control. And I really want to think about how do we actually build community? How do we have those hard conversations and actually invest in the structures that are already in place? Like I've been the chapter leader also. So I go to the school safety meetings, like the building wide meetings, and students should be part of those, and it's like people are so demoralized. They just want to get out of it because they don't feel like there's any power. There's no truth in it. There's no like fight, right? So we have to actually like listen to each other and build those structures so that we can build better schools and ultimately build better society, right? A better community, and when they change the chancellor constantly, it's disgusting. It's demoralizing. Like we have these learning partners programs where I got to like meet all the other schools in the building. I went to others because I have 4 schools in my building. I got to meet the other teachers. It was really nice. And then all of a sudden it was gone, right? Because it wasn't it wasn't part of the chancellor's program. And now it's back next year because this chancellor likes it, and then they're getting rid of my superintendent, like Alan Chang. They're just like disrespecting him, right? He's come from the schools, and then they're saying, oh, you can't reapply, or maybe you can reapply. I don't know. I can't follow it, right? Like, but it's, Alan has been a champion of schools, and now they're just trying to throw him out. Like, let's not throw people out, and this is abolitionist, right? Like nobody is disposable, right? Our students aren't disposable, our people aren't, but we have to have hard conversations so that we can grow and learn and lead with love. So I'm grateful to be with you all, and it's very inspiring to be part of this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. there are a few people waiting to speak. Thank you for your patience. Just a reminder as we approach 7:30 to keep your comments concise and to stay as on topic as possible. And with that, I'm going to circle back to James, who actually goes by Jim. I'm sorry about that. Would you like to speak now?
Yes, thank you. I'm Jim DeVore, one of the founding members of Community Education Council for District 15. And want to again make a shout out to my successors who have done an outstanding job in keeping those traditions alive. I would have some disagreement with some of the history that you laid out. There was a change in the law in 1996 and 97, which would provide a very good baseline, I think, to where we are now. I'm less concerned about citywide policy at this point. That is something that others will discuss in greater depth. I would want to take a look at the roles that were played by community school boards towards the end of their tenure in the late 90s and early zeros. In that many of the excesses that were complained about in the early period of time were done away with the changes in 96 and 97. And what we find and what we have found historically is that contrary to received wisdom, it was not the city, it's not the de Blasios who have led aggressive change in New York City schools, but in fact, community school boards and community education councils. We were the first council that came out in favor of a targeted admissions program that gave greater weight to children from free and reduced free and reduced price lunch programs and English language learners for access to the most desired schools in the district. That was done with the resistance of the Bloomberg administration and with the indifference of the de Blasio administration. It was done that school districts like District 1 in New York, District 13 in Brooklyn, to a lesser degree, District 3, took a leading role in that. And one thing I've just learned and saw is that learning to trust your parents is something that you can do well by. And this kind of image that perhaps parents can't be trusted because they're inherently racist or they're inherently parochial has not really been the experience that we've had in New York. What I would look at is take a look at the 96-97 law as a baseline for increasing powers of parents within their own districts. You have the horrendous situation now with the new community district superintendents, where we've had a forum in which none of the candidates had any written statements that could be looked at by parents in the so-called C37 process. That in many districts, no questions were allowed from parents or any serious participation by parents, or even for that matter, community education councils in that choice process. We learned that even under the new improved situation where district superintendents are allowed to apply for their jobs back, CECs will have no role at all in making the choices as to who will lead those districts. That's not acceptable. And whether or not we have mayoral control on a large scale policy issues is one thing, but keeping parents away from the process of who their leadership should be, what kinds of what they want to look towards in issues like gifted and talented programs and things of that nature are the kinds of things that parents and local community school districts are able to make decisions that are helpful to the parents of those districts and to the city as a whole. We should be looking at that as a baseline, that that kind of policy was somewhat in place in the late 90s and should be looked upon as the base upon which any further legislation will take place. Look, there will be, in all likelihood, a 1-year respite for this mayor to do whatever damage he needs to wreak upon the system over the next year. That is not something that should be allowed to continue past that year. And there should be a special emphasis on what local community school districts can do to implement best educational practices for their communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Next, we have Miriam.
Hello, did you say Miriam?
Yes, I did.
Hey, hold on. The lack of noise behind me. Hold on, I'm mute myself for a second.
No problem. In the meantime, I will say that we are going to extend this event by 15 minutes. So we'll end at 7:45 to hear from more people. But also this means that the stack is now officially closed. So if you type stack after the time it is now, 7:15, I will not be reading past the time that we're at now, the timestamp. So if you've been in the queue, we're going to try to get to everyone that's there in the time that we have. I'm sorry, Miriam, if you want to go ahead and I'm talking over you. Take your time back.
Okay. Hello, do you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Please, guys, don't make noise. Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank everyone who organized this evening. I would like to thank Senator Brisport. Let me put my camera on. Senator Brisport, Senator, I remember when you used to come to our PTA meetings in Fort Greene, PS20, and now I see where you are and I see what you're doing. It's amazing. Thank you so much. So many people already spoke before me. They have the knowledge, they have the historical knowledge, they have the backup, the vaccine knowledge. I just want all of us to, or I would like to share with all of us something that you all have noticed around you. I was talking to one of the principals, and the principal was shocked when she received the list of the kids the middle school, who were coming to her school. She didn't understand. And then she realized that, as a matter of fact, it was not only her school, but there was a decrease of enrollment in all the public schools. Okay, so the direct effect of all this is that there is an exodus of families from NYC public schools to something else. Okay, so it is a disaster, and this new team, Adam and Banks, is not helping at all the public schools. Loin de là, as we say in French, really, and I'm not French, I'm francophone. Loin de là, okay, meaning far from that. So families are running towards either charter or private schools, and this is unacceptable. The more I hear about what is happening, and the more I am just infuriated. And I follow Shino with the commission. The more I hear, oh my good Lord, when I heard Dr. Kaleri saying that behind the scene we have the Bloomberg resurrection, I just want to run so fast, and I want to give a zero control for the mayor for the upcoming years. And of course, I don't know if some of you were at the last PEP meeting, but there was a huge discussion about the fair student formula, and all the comments, everyone was ignored, and we reconducted a formula that is completely misleading, that is far from being fair especially the student of need, etc. I'm going to stop here because there are more people who would like to talk and share, but that's what I take from all this situation. It's really alarming. Thank you again, Senator Brisport, and all the voices on this call, and all the activists, Camille, Valérie, Chino, and all of those that I'm not saying the name, but you are in my heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Miriam, and drive safely, please.
Yes, okay.
Next, we have Rachel Barr.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see some comrades from earlier today. I taught in the DOE for 17 years. I taught all the grades. And this horror started when de Blasio did not negotiate in any kind of fair way when he insisted upon childcare teachers having the same credentials as teachers in the DOE buildings. I left the DOE in 2009. I've been running childcare centers for the city since 2010. I just left one. And I am deeply, deeply concerned about the fact that the mayor, whoever it happens to be at any given year, doesn't matter if it's Adams, doesn't matter if it's de Blasio, doesn't matter if who it is. The fact of the matter is that back in the day, I don't know, there's some young people on the screen, but people need to check out history. They need to Google Black Panther Party. They need to Google the Young Lords Party, because without community involvement in public education, people are going to be in the streets. They're going to be in the streets starting as soon as we organize. We're going to be out in the streets. We're going into the charter schools. The charter schools must be closed. The DOE took over childcare for New York City, which is licensed by the New York City Department of Health. And the fact of the matter is that since children who are 3 and 4 years old are going into public school, which are not licensed by the Department of Health, is of great concern to me, because the rate of COVID is going up because the mayor, the so-called mayor, is not ensuring children and staff safety in the schools. Got to get the police out of the schools. I will say this before I stop myself, because there may be more people who want to speak, and I have to go on another Zoom about keeping WBAI on the air, which is also of deep concern. That the fact that the DOE took over childcare is unacceptable, and it's deplorable. And Mayor was a police officer. He was a captain. And like I was raised to know, once a cop, always a cop. The fact that the mayor is not enforcing his boys in blue, and I'll say women too, so I don't, like kick the women out of that inclusionary stuff. It's just an expression. He must enforce mask wearing on the trains and buses, especially the police. The rates are going up. He got COVID. This is not a game. Children are getting sick. Staff are getting sick. I've been working at my daycare center for 7 weeks, and in that short amount of time, we've had to close down several classrooms in that center. So I will end, because I gotta be on time a little bit for the other Zoom, that Mr. Brisport, please communicate to your colleagues, as it were, and to the higher up colleagues, that when people and parents and students, make no doubt about it, are pissed off, as we all are on this screen, we will go out into the streets and we will get done what needs to get done. And I'm not advocating violence. I know this is being recorded, so let me be clear that I am not advocating violence. This is not a smiling matter. It's a very serious matter. We have children getting kicked out of charter schools because charter schools are not attending to children's IEPs. And because of COVID, I have 10 children in childcare who have not been able to get the SEED services that they are required to get. This is unacceptable in the richest country in the world. And no one on the screen disagrees with me. I don't know all you, but I know I could say that safely. When people are angry enough, no, we're not smart about this. Please. When people are angry, they'll go out into the streets, and they don't use guns because we're not white supremacists in Buffalo. Let's be clear. We will get done what needs to get done. So I got to go on the other Zoom and keep BAI on the air. Thank you for listening to me. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good night, everyone. Peace.
Thank you, Rachel. Have a good night.
Next, we have Rachel Posner.
Hi, seems like there's a lot of Rachels. Have a lot to say. So hi, everyone. Thank you for all being here. So I'm a parent of a third grader. I am a member of Press NYC of More and NYC Opt Out. I'm also in my 19th year of teaching high school English. So I started in 2003. So this structure is basically all I've known. And for all the teachers there, I hope that what I'm about to say you can relate to, but I feel like for like a lot of teachers, like we're usually too busy, like making a way out of no way in the classroom to really pay totally close attention to the policies happening up there. And that was me for most of that time. Like for 16 of the years I was teaching, I did not know what the PEP was. I was just doing my thing. And I do want to just give one very recent example of how mayoral control is so ineffective and so wasteful, on top of being undemocratic. Really, it's racist. It's all of these things that people have been saying. But so it makes it harder for the people on the ground to just devote our time and energy to actually teaching. So under de Blasio, the Mosaic curriculum, which is a different name for what is supposed to be culturally responsive, sustaining education, right? It was passed, it was decided on, right? And this was the result of years of organizing by BIPOC parent leaders and educators. And these materials and these books and this plan was decided on, it was funded, it was all this stuff was ordered, right? So this is like human power hours. This is money, massive amounts of money, right? Spent on this amazing curriculum, right? And then the mayor switches over. All of a sudden, schools start getting deliveries. Like, remember how there was like a time when Nestle was like dropping baby formula? It was like boxes of these incredible books by diverse authors, diverse, powerful stories are just dropped onto schools. No guidance, no curriculum, no training, right? No way to ensure that teachers who may not know these books aren't going to actually do harm teaching this stuff, right? So then all of these people are trying to figure out, what do I do with all these books? People are literally like, giving them away because we have no space. I don't know if anyone knows, the schools are a little crowded, right? And I'm just thinking to myself, what a shame. It is, because the mayor doesn't care about it because he wants to distinguish himself. He doesn't want to continue the work that was already done. I'm just thinking like, this system is completely ineffective. It is completely wasteful, and it's insulting. It is demoralizing, right? So I just really want to, even those people, and I am not one of them, who care about the bottom line, right? How much money was wasted on those books? It's sick. And they're awesome books. And as an English teacher, like they have that new book smell. It's truly heartbreaking. So I want to bring that into the space. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Next, we have Tazeen.
Hey everyone, peace and blessings. My name is Tazeen Azad, and I am the Brooklyn Borough President's appointee to the PEP. Thank you, Senator Bisport, for holding this conversation. You are triangulated in between the most amazing advocate CECs that sort of feed in, that has been active in this conversation for a long time. So I'm glad that you have some on the ground powerhouses who's going to be supporting you in this work. I just want to bring us back to why we are here. Now, mayoral control was an effort to take back control of schools from communities of color. Now, New York City is among the few other, I think one other school districts in New York State that has something similar to mayoral control. No other city has that type of control. And if we go back deep enough into the history in which Brooklyn, Central Brooklyn has been deeply ingrained in that sort of history, we could tell that mayoral control came as a result of the city wanting back control over the schools where the majority of the students and the parents are people of color, specifically Black and Brown people, and multilingual people with disabilities, people in transitional housings. And we want to know why that shift was made, right? So we know who Bloomberg was. He was a corporate efficiency type of guy. And so we saw that as soon as he took that control back, we saw a lack of arts in the schools that was needed the most, a push for testing, standardized testing, a testing regime, everything that pulls away from a holistic healing center schooling spaces that we communities of color thrive on and our children thrive on. And so it's more, it's about who has or who this system will speak to. And if indeed we want to be responsive to the people on the ground and the students that we are ultimately trying to serve, then we must have a system that is most accommodating to them and what they want and how they want. We heard the youth speak at the last PEP, and they were very clear and very concise and very direct in what they want. They're very clear. The parent advocates are very clear, have been for a long time, that communities of color deserve to dictate and maintain the educational trajectory of their children. It can be someone who's looking for corporate efficiency, but looking to create people who is going to be able to walk within this world, in a global majority world, in a way that will help us into the future going forward. Now, I'm very grateful to have been appointed by someone like Borough President Reynosa, who stands on equity issues and allows me to sort of vote along those lines as I wish. But as Clarice outlined it, there's very much atmosphere of punitive sort of pushbacks against those panel members who want to talk and sort of walk their equity stances. And so my 2 cents would not be on the structure of PEP, but really on the commission that could highlight the importance of bringing back community control and allowing the parents and the community members and the children and the student really to take back control for their educational rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Tazeen.
Next, we have Rachel Connolly.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I am not a parent, former teacher, current teacher. I'm just a 20-something with a dog. But something that I really want to make clear to folks in Albany is that it's not just folks who are directly touched by the education system that are interested in what's happening. When I talk to my friends, I think they really just can't believe that like the level of disrespect that happens from the mayor, from the chancellor at PEP, where members don't care enough about what constituents have to say, what other members have to say, but they don't charge their laptop before a meeting. So a vote has to be rushed instead of hearing from a parent appointee. I agree with everything that's been said. And I really just wanted to highlight that the education system is a part of our community fabric. And it's not just parents and students and educators that care about what's happening.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Bear with me one moment. I'm scrolling, catching up here. All right, so it actually appears that we're caught up on the stack, but we've already extended the time. It's also possible I could have skipped some people as we were going through. Oh, I'm seeing here I have a direct message from Cassandra.
Yes, thank you. I'm here with my 2 adult children and my neighbor, public school education. Thank God, one in medicine, one went to culinary arts, sous chef, and the other one's a state trooper. One thing I notice about the school system, I'm not against charter, but there should be a cap, and I'll tell you why. In public school, it's all children with IEPs, special ed. Now, let me tell you what charter school does. In February, they don't, it's called dumping, and I think they're aware of it. It's a thing where they literally are trying to destroy public education. In February, what they do is, in charter school, any child in charter school that they find that it doesn't have a 3 or 4 on those standardized tests, they get rid of them. They go back to public school. So it makes it look like the charter schools are achieving so greatly and the public schools are not on the same level. But that's all a farce, because no matter what, if you are a good school, you should be able to teach all levels of children. You understand what I'm saying? Now let's talk about, so in terms of the curriculum, that has to be revamped. It should be inclusive into everybody's culture. In terms of the food services in the school system is bad for public and public. They serving children's food that's expired or what do you call it? That's spoiled. No, we don't want mayor control, but what I do suggest that we should have those parents educated, because you got to know about the curriculum. You understand what I'm saying? You can't just say, I'm a parent. No, you got to be educated, but definitely the mayor should not have control, and y'all got to end this thing. There's a lot of illegal stuff going on. This dumping has to stop. You do not let the children get dumped out of charter schools and go back to public school if they don't meet, have a 3 or 4 in the state exams, or if they find out that the child is, and I don't want to use the word slow, but have some little disabilities, or mentally challenged, boom, back to public school. Public school is not a dumping ground. I'm a public school. I came out of public education. All my children, public education, and they went into medicine, culinary. They had professions. They didn't have jobs.
Oh, Cassandra, we're having trouble hearing you with your mic. I think if you come closer to the computer, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
I said you cannot let charter schools use public schools as a dumping ground. What the charter schools do, they look at the test scores. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. They look at the test scores. They only want the children to get 3s and 4s, right? If the child gets a 3 and 4, okay, we'll accept them into charter school. If the charter school finds out that the child has some type of challenges, mental challenges, boom, back to public school. Oh, child might have an IEP, boom, back to public school. So they're turning public school into a dumping ground. And that's not what public education was supposed to be. There should be uniformity in terms of education. Now, in public school, I don't know if they changed it. You had to sit for exams, state, federal, and city exams. I don't know if some of the public charter school teachers have to do that. I don't know, because they keep changing things. But all I'm saying is you cannot and you should not make public school a dumping ground. And I'm against mayor control. Definitely keep your hands off it. Educate the parents so that they be effective in the educational process of their children. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, so we have time for one more comment. I see Sam, you have your hand raised. So go ahead, and then after that, Senator Brisbois, feel free to take us out.
Yes, I'll be very brief. I put in the chat
the Coalition to Finally End Mayoral Controls executive summary of a draft for a People's Board of Education. When we fight against we fight to end mayoral control, but we have to have something more democratic, more fundamentally based on education as a human right. And so we've come up with, over the years, we've come up with this concept of a People's Board of Education. Encourage everyone to take a look at that and help us participate in developing this, especially Senator Brisbois, to have something that he can take into his with his colleagues to deal with an alternative to mayoral control. And the other thing is, Senator Brisbois should advocate for a hearing on mayoral control. 20 years without any critique, an understanding of mayoral control by Albany is a crime. And $36 billion a year for 20 years, and no critique of that, no assessment, no breakdown of it is not happening. We can't move forward without that. Thank you.
Okay, so let me close out. So I just want to start off by saying this was an incredible meeting, and you've all made me somewhat emotional because I can really tell how much love there is behind the comments. The love of our community's children, the love of the teachers that go to bat for our students, our children every day, the love of parents and the work that you're here always laden with, and just a general love of education. So thank you for that. I will direct respond to Sam. The legislature had a hearing on mayoral control in February. Although when I hear you ask for that, it lets me know that we did not do a good enough job of advertising that the hearing was happening. I will include a link to what was said in whatever we send out after tonight. And I do not know if we can organize another hearing before the end of the legislative session on June 2nd, but I appreciated my chance to hear from all of you tonight. And I really cannot thank everyone that participated enough tonight for sharing your thoughts. No pun intended, but I was educated tonight by a lot of your comments. And it is also very empowering when all of you share your voices like tonight. It helps guide me in what I'm saying, what I'm doing up here in Albany. I want to disclose that last Tuesday, the Adams administration came to Albany. Mayor Adams came with Chancellor Banks and other members of his administration to lobby us on the 4-year extension. It was a large conversation, and by us, I was specifically the BPHA caucus. It's the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Asian caucus of the state legislature. It was a large conversation, but because of all the emails and calls that many of you were giving to my office, even before last Tuesday, I was able to stand firm and say, in my community, 4 years is not on the table, 3 years is not on the table. It seems, if anything, 1 year seems to be the max as we figure something else out. And this conversation was reaffirming for that, especially because I will stand on all of your ideas and shoulders moving forward in conversations, not with the mayor, but with my colleagues, because again, the mayor does not vote on mayoral control. It is up to the state legislature. It is between the state assembly, the state senate, and the governor. And it's helpful for me as I'm in conversations with my colleagues in the next 2 weeks to say that my community does not support 4 years or even 3 years. I cannot vote yes on an extension of 4 years or 3 years because I have to represent what my community wants. So I cannot thank you all enough for empowering me and also empowering yourselves. This was just a fantastic discussion. I really appreciated not only just about the love, but also the smarts that everyone had. And a special shout out to the teachers that joined on the call tonight. I said at the top, but back when I was a public school teacher, Sunday nights were my last minute prep time for the week ahead. So I appreciate you taking the time out to come and share. This is a very important conversation, but truthfully, the thanks go to everyone. So thank you so much. And we will be in further conversation. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Shukran. Thank you, everyone. Shukran, shukran, shukran. Thank you. Awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
Yes, hi Jabari, can you hear me? This is Neil speaking. Thank you very much. It's a great meeting.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for joining from the Bronx.
Yeah, great to see you, Jabari, really, very much so.
Likewise. All right, Cara, if you could just stay on. I think nearly everyone is gone. All right, I just started manually removing people.
Sorry, I was like, do I know how to remove people?
We're still recording.
Okay. Wait. Yeah, so apparently, oh,
How do we? Oh, there's a stop button. I got it.
okay. Wait.
Did you do it already? Oh no. Sorry. Oh, my bad.